Wonderful. Wonderful. Beautiful.
How you doing, man?
Amazing. I've been good. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for taking the time to stop by.
Of course, dude.
Have a conversation.
I mean, I would take the time. I would take the time to talk to you under normal circumstances, but now it's even easier because I have nothing going on.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just kind of taking advantage of the situation, essentially. Taking advantage of you in your situation.
Exactly. Yeah. Same deal.
Yeah, I know that sounded callous, so I figured I'd go the extra mile and make it sound even more callous. So,
how are you?
I'm doing good. Again, thank you for stopping by and deciding to have a convo.
You're on the East Coast, am I correct?
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast. You're on the West Coast.
So it's like 10 p.m. for you.
Yeah, it's 10 p.m. for me.
Thanks for staying up late. I appreciate it.
I'm usually up by this time anyway. It's things like this that make me really happy and reflect on the fact that I'm really glad the East Coast West Coast beef has died down at this point. Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't be able to have this.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool that it's over.
I was not really alive or cognizant during the East Coast West Coast like music feud. But don't you feel that in your position as a music reviewer, you would have been like an equal opportunity offense? Like you would have, they both would have had beef with you.
I would have been East Coast all the way though. But I was alive, but I wasn't old enough to participate, sadly. But that's fine. I'm here now. So,
yes.
I can still reflect on those memories. So yeah, man, I mean, look, I love what you and Billy are doing. I wanted to ask you questions about that and, just kind of get some more insight and info onto that because I appreciate and I admire the fact that you guys don't try to feed into the limelight too much that is so desperately like trying to pry every, bit of privacy that you have left away from you in your creative process. So.
Well, thank you. I mean, every, like, I think you made a tweet about this, like about how everybody's trying to rip off The Cave, the Kenny Beats show.
Sure, yeah.
And like, I feel like we started to realize somewhere in the middle of last year that like every internet sort of like presence of a traditional media platform, I won't name drop them because I'm, trying to be nice, but they all, every different company is like, maybe we could come into the inside of your creative process. And like, we did like one because we thought it was like honest enough to do, but then they all just want to do it. And we were like, to me, the whole deal is like, it has nothing to do with the way that we made our music or not. It has to do with the fact that like, I don't think there is a right or wrong way to do it. And I don't want people like growing up, I would watch like insert producer here and think like, oh, I need to be in that work environment or I need to have that piece of technology to do what they do. And ultimately it's like, you don't really need, you don't need any of the same thing. You just need to like have good ideas and try for a long time.
Yeah. And I believe you had a tweet responding to me about sort of working in these studio environments. And you were, I think, bitching or complaining about how I'll be in this, really expensive studio and I'll be spending half the time getting my shit to work inside of it. Like, yeah,
always. I mean, a lot of it has to do, and like, no disrespect, but like a lot of it has to do with like the people you're interacting with at a traditional, like old school studio are usually like an intern who's not being paid enough, who's like been there for 2 weeks and like doesn't know how to use it themselves. And so you go like, show me the IO matrix. And they're like, you know what I mean? It's like, I think if I had whoever built the studio there to show me around, like, I'd be like, wow, this is the most amazing studio. But it's usually like a dude who's like, Michael Jackson recorded here. And you're like, nice buzzword.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Let me get to my first question. I wanted to, this is what hit me first because, I mean, look, I'm still being hit with news and information about this album all the time, even though it's months old at this point.
So old, yeah. It's a year old.
Apparently the record is still #1 in vinyl sales for this week.
Wow, really? Like, that's awesome.
Oh, it's like, when's it going to end?
I know.
But my question is, a lot of music these days that's put out by mainstream labels, it just seems like it's maximized to hit and gain streams in such a short time period.
Right,
and
yeah.
What you two have done together has just amassed this incredible shelf life that we haven't really seen this kind of shelf life on a new record since like Adele you know, Adele's last couple of LPs, at least in my mind anyway. You know, Post Malone's doing really well too, but I mean, it's like this kind of staying power is rare. And, you know, considering you're going against the grain in that sense with this record, like,
yeah.
What is it like to be a part of something that's actually lasting, and what do you feel like it is about your writing or creative process that actually has contributed to this effect?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, you know, I think I have some responsibility to say that, like, I obviously we didn't set out to make an album and think like we're going to make a timeless album. We were just trying to make the best album we could make. But yeah. I did, this is very name droppy of me, but someone that is on our team is affiliated with Father John Misty, and he's like a hero of mine. And they were like, Father John wants to write for Pitch. Like, he wants to write songs for pop artists. Do you want to try to write a song with him? And I was like, I would love to sit on my back patio while he smokes cigarettes all day and like hear him talk. For like, if that's an option, let's do that. And it turns out that's very much an option with Father John. To like, he had so many good quotes that day. One of them was like, how come if you don't watch an Avengers movie, America tries to convince you that you're not a patriot? He said so many things that were like unbelievable Father John quotes. But we talked about the same thing about like, because his point of why he liked our music was that there were songs on the record that felt old school. And my response was, and I do try to think this is like, people have this like real obsession with like relevancy, and like, to me, like, if you can kind of be like anti-relevance, then you don't become irrelevant as fast. Like, if you just kind of make a song, like one of my close friends the other day, he's a songwriter, and he was just curious. He's more a producer than a songwriter, but he Googled songs that did really well during World War II, because he was curious about like the songwriter response of coronavirus. And he found out that all the songs about like us persevering and making it through the war and like being victorious, they all like tanked. All the labels lost money. All the songs about love did really well because it's timeless. And all the songs about killing Nazis did incredibly well. All the like drinking songs that were like very anti-Nazi and very anti-Hitler did incredibly well. But I think it's just to say that like, people don't always necessarily need to like hear like a Damn Daniel reference in their music to like feel that it connects to them on an empathetic level. I think, to me, like, I don't know if you feel this way, when I go revisit an album that I loved as like a 15-year-old, if it's the right album, I love it no less, you know?
Yeah, so, you know, some stuff that you've grown up with ages horribly. Some stuff,
so true, so true.
I mean, I can go back in the past and listen to System of a Down's Toxicity. Production
so good,
sounds amazing. Songwriting is amazing.
So good.
You know, the scariest thing about the record is that the political themes throughout it are more relevant now than they have ever been. But then I can also go back and listen to Mindless Self-Indulgence's Frankenstein Girls Are Sexy, and that's super.
I love Mindless Self-Indulgence. I'm a huge Jimmy Arene fan.
It's a guilty pleasure, but it obviously has not aged as well as System of a Down. It's got a special place in my heart still.
That video of it's like his side project, The Left Rights of White, is so good. Where the like girls are live streaming and they get killed. So crazy. It's like the craziest video I've ever seen.
So speaking of some of the, you know, sonic similarities that you were just talking about with timeless music and all that, what had just popped up, I saw on Instagram recently, was your sister had gone through a pretty cool story series, just throwing up a bunch of songs that inspired a number of songs from.
Yeah, I like that she did that. She was bored.
Yeah. No, I thought that was really cool. There are artists in the past who I've loved seeing them do that as well. James Murphy's done that with LCD stuff. Animal Collective did that with some pretty amazing songs from
that's awesome.
When that record came out. So I thought it was pretty refreshing that she did that, but still bold during an age where, you know, you have people suing other people for just a song having a similar vibe to another song.
I know.
Not that I'm trying to will that into existence.
No, I know. But, yeah, I think about it a lot.
But I get this question all the time because I throw this out in my reviews. And as somebody who's obviously a creator himself and a successful that. You know, in your own opinion, what is that fine line between this song, this idea, this concept is merely inspiring me, or I'm going to rip this off blatantly, or are they not really all that different, you know, at their base?
That's a great question. I feel that, like, at least in my own music creation, like, I just feel it in my gut. Like, if I've ripped something off, like today I was making a beat and I was like, this is like way too Starboy. Like, I just had to like call it
a point of reference.
Yeah, and like, and it was funny because
the specific single.
Yeah, and it was like, and it came into form as Starboy. Like, I was just making a rhythm, and I was like, oh, this is very much Starboy. And so I was like, if I'm gonna salvage any of this, like, I need to really, like, you know, shift it. I mean, I agree with you. I feel like the saddest thing to me about like lawsuits often in music is that, like, they're too vague. Like, it's one thing if it's like the Viva La Vida lawsuit and it's like a whole melody line and it really like has like the same shape. Like, for sure, I get it, and I love Viva La Vida anyway, but I get it. But yeah, I think like that Dark Horse Katy Perry lawsuit was like a huge bummer because it was just like some notes.
It's just that weird synth line and texture that had a vague similarity, but then everything else about the song was like almost not similar at all. And I feel like when you are putting those types of suits in front of a jury, they don't have a full concept of how wide the world of music is today.
Yeah.
And you could merely convince them, well, this person's Grammy nominated, so, you know, they must have been heard by everybody. And merely off of that and just the similarity of some synth line, which is just a few note line, you know.
I like, guarantee you, if I ever am sued for something like that, it's like the most unintentional, like even if it sounds exactly the same, it's me going like, oh my god, that does sound so, like, I feel like it's so like there's 13 notes in a scale. Like, I just feel like that would be the only way it would happen, because the benefit is, like, by the time a song comes out, Billy and I have played it for so many people, and like, if nobody has called it, it's just, you know, it's too vague. So I'm in the same boat as you. But yeah, man, I always feel terrible for, like, that whole Robin Thicke Blurred Lines case with Marvin Gaye. To me, was like, I don't know, man. Like, they're both great. This is not the same song to me.
Yeah. So it just seems like more of a gut feeling and essentially just trying not to step over a line and being as self-aware as possible, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'll give you an example. Like, on Billy's album, the production on All the Good Girls Go to Hell, there's a very, like, West Coast Snoop Dogg, like, style synth. But, like, I feel like it's basically just evocative. Like, it's a similar plug-in patch to what he used to use. And I think that kind of makes you go like, ooh, la da 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 da. But like, I don't think it, like, I wouldn't have gone any further in that direction into like trying to rip somebody off. I just was like, oh, this is kind of a similar, like, West Coasty, like, synth, you know?
Yeah. And personally, as just a fan and a listener, like, it's also really about the context in which you place that type of synth too.
Exactly.
Because once you've taken that, you've so far removed it to the point where it's in a song like that.
Yeah.
It's like you've totally bastardized it. It's not the same thing anymore. Like, you know, any grounds for a lawsuit would be preposterous.
I kind of think so. Yeah.
But again, it all kind of comes down to the eye of the beholder, unfortunately, and not listening to things as closely.
It's true.
But speaking of the production, considering that you guys are in very much a different place than you were when you just originally made the record, and you've already kind of voiced your opinion about, hey, putting everything into $1 million studio anyway.
Yeah.
But still, from here, are there any plans to scale things up or broaden things, not just in terms of what you have access to, but you know, I imagine there are. I mean, I've shared a video with you where there's literally a producer on camera saying he would give his left nut to have worked on that record. You know, it's like there have to be other producers, you know, who have more name recognition, who are like, oh my god, I want to work with Billy Idol.
Right.
But I imagine from what you guys have created so far, like, you sticking together as brother and sister is kind of a part of that creative process.
I think,
you know, you can't just like throw Hit Boy into the mix and then it's just like, going to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like, we try not to be naysayers. We've gotten to do a couple of different things. Like, we got to do we wrote the James Bond theme, and then Hans was attached to score the movie, and so he started calling me and was like, let's get a string arrangement done. And that was like, you know, like I just don't have 75 great movies under my belt to do a string arrangement. It was great to learn from him.
Sense. That makes utter sense.
Yeah, and I think in that case it took out like my kind of like I probably could have done a string arrangement that I would have been proud of, but it would have taken much longer because I would have had to fail. And so having a dude like Hans who knows like exactly what to do was pretty awesome. And he taught me a lot in like how good of a listener he is. Like, you know, Billy's a fabulously sort of like well-spoken and articulate in her dissent. And he would try something and she'd be like, I think that's cool. I don't think that's right for this song. And he was like, I agree. You know what I mean? Like, it was very impressive that he wasn't just trying to kind of be like, I'm Hans Zimmer, I know everything. It was great to watch him do that. I mean, Billy and I are big fan. Like, a lot of the people that I hang out with in LA are producers that I, you know, respect and am inspired by. And, you know, I don't think we've ever ruled out like doing something, but I think it's more likely that in the nearer future, it's like one-off little things where like, hey, this cool beat came across the table and isn't this awesome? And then these two artists hopped on it and it, you know, it becomes its own kind of thing. I think predominantly for cohesion, I wouldn't want to like I just feel like I can always hear like the Pharrell track on somebody's album and like that's great. He's an awesome producer, but I wouldn't want to do that to a Billy record where you're like, oh, who did this track? Pharrell? You know what I mean? I'd rather just be like, it's all Billy. Yeah.
No, I mean that there's a certain type of, I guess, cohesion and or in an auditory world that you have already created thus far.
That's the goal.
That fans are going to have kind of an expectation for.
Right.
While, you know, I think certainly, you know, the wave of trap that we're currently in the midst of has shown how homogenized producers can become when they're all convening on one record, because
kind of crazy, right?
There are some albums out there and they're quite good that, I mean, if I didn't look at the producer list, I wouldn't know it's 8 or 9 different guys because they're all kind of like still trying to create the same sensation across the entire record.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, it is. And I have no doubt that you could bring somebody into the fold that, you know, would totally adhere themselves to, you know, just like Hans, to whatever it is you're trying to achieve. But if the relationship works, the relationship works.
Yeah, I think it would probably be goal-based. And I mean, like, to me, in many ways, Billy is already kind of the co-producer on the record because she just has so many opinions and, you know, comes in, you know, with her sort of like barrels loaded and has ideas and is never shy about like, that's not working. You know what I mean? So that to me is like, in many ways, like already great to have. But, you know, like, I don't know, Kenny said something that was awesome a couple months ago now on Twitter where he was like, anytime I end up on anyone's top 10 producer list, like I know they're full of shit because there's so many great producers. And I think Kenny's like a really well-read dude. So Kenny probably is like looking at producers from the last 30 years and knowing how good Babyface is and shit. And I feel like a lot of kids that are on Twitter are like watching The Cave and they're like, this is the best producer of all time. And like, that's how youth culture works. Like, that's great. Yeah. Like Kenny's awesome. But I feel like Kenny's like an encyclopedia of like Benny Blanco, and I talk about it a lot. I guess Kenny will quote Benny Blanco interviews to Benny that he's seen from like years ago. But that's like why Kenny's so great, because he like has all this knowledge.
Yeah, no, and he understands that part of the reason people see him in that way is because he's so good at putting himself out there, and he's so good at attaching himself to different projects and making sure he's in the music video. And you know, the Kid is a genius series.
He is, the series is great. Yeah. What was your, because I came on to Zach Fox through that series and just like fell in love with the whole thing. And you were also like an early Zach Fox adopter.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some of him memeing around a little bit on the internet, and then I caught that just through like people who I follow, like retweeting him or reacting to things that he was doing. But then it was really that Square Up song.
Square Up is actually like a really good song.
Square Up is an amazing fucking song.
I Got Depressions. I Got Depressions hilarious, but Square Up is great.
Square Up is a great song not just because it's funny, but also just like ethically and conceptually, because it really does kind of like adhere to the idea of like, we are going to fist fight. You know, we're not doing knives and guns. We're going to handle this mano a mano. Like,
and his voice sounds great on it. He sounds like he's been rapping for 20 years. Like, he sounds awesome.
He sounds like a fucking vet on that song.
Yeah, he's really good.
And I don't know I mean, I don't know exactly how Zach sees himself, you know, artistically and creatively, and like what is stopping him from just like having 4 albums out already. But you know, every track he puts out is great, and I don't know. It's at least a testament to the idea that it's not really how much you put out, but how great everything you put out is, even if it's one song a year.
That's how I feel about that artist. Do you know that artist Labyrinth? I feel the same way about him. He had that song Jealous that came out as like a single, and just that was like, he put out the single and it just is a timeless song. And then a couple years later, he put out a song called Misbehaving that's also great. Like, he's just like a quality over quantity guy. It's pretty awesome.
In your opinion and your experience, sort of viewing the industry in the position that you're in right now, is that, even if you do come out with the most amazing song like every once in a while, is that model even sustainable at this point, with streaming sort of being the main vein through which everyone's accessing their music these days, and it's only going to increase?
Such a good question. I have been happy to see songs blow up on Spotify like way after they come out recently. Like I executive produced this artist Ash. She did a couple EPs. She went through a divorce and did these EPs, and I just was like, oh my god, you're going through a divorce, like these are going to be amazing songs. And I was right. She wrote really good songs, and I just did some production on all of them, and we put it out like a year and some change ago, and it was kind of like dead on arrival. And you know, it was a kind of a humbling experience, because I was like, these songs are great. I didn't even write them, and I know how great they are, and I did production I'm proud of, and they just didn't do their thing. And then the single off of it was in this like Netflix movie called To All the Boys I've Loved Before Part 2. And that movie, just having the sync like completely like catapulted the song, and it's been an awesome experience. And then through the sort of magic of Spotify, it's gotten all this love. And a similar thing happened to that Trevor Daniel kid. That Falling song was like a 2018 release and got really big toward the end of last year. So I'm enjoying watching songs kind of percolate in that sense. I feel like people have this fear that they put out a song on Spotify, and if it doesn't do its thing in like 5 days, it's like gone forever. And I think because of the sort of like nature of like playlisting and of like release radar, and then of like stuff gets weirdly populated in playlists that I think is good. I mean, I would say that like it's all about like a medium, right? If you oversaturate and you put out too many songs, people don't listen every time. But if you never put out songs, like it's probably, you know, even if you're an incredibly relevant artist, maybe it's harder to like tour all year. Like if your goal is like a sustainable financial option, and you're like, I want to tour X amount per year, yeah, maybe you need to like put out a new project to justify another tour through Boston when you were there in the spring, where you're like, I have new music to play you know.
It's funny that the internet can even really breathe new life into stuff that's even older than that.
Right?
Have you heard of Fishman's?
Yeah.
I mean, people ask me about Fishman's all the goddamn time. Like every time I'm doing a live stream, it's like, Anthony, have you heard Fishman's? Have you heard this experimental Japanese music group? And it's like, yes, I have. And it's funny because some of the younger kids in my audience like kind of come into this assuming like I did not know about them, just like you, until recently, because this was not like a thing that everyone was aware of. Just like when emo was at its peak creatively and even commercially, you know, nor was American football seen as like the biggest emo band. But nowadays, with, you know, the current wave of emo fans and bands, like a lot of them look at American football as if they're like, gods, exactly. And
yeah, I feel that way about MCR. I loved MCR in MCR's heyday, and like they were a band, and now they're like, you know,
a phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I remember like being a fan when they came out.
Yeah, and in their own camp of fans, they definitely were that. You know, that's
totally
undeniable. You know, they had like a hardcore
but I don't feel that it was cred to like them. When I liked them, I was like, this is just a band I love. And the other people that loved it were like, hell yeah. And now I feel like kids will wear like an MCR t-shirt and you'll be like, all right. Like, it's like you know what I mean? It's weird.
Yeah, because at the time there was a lot of stigma around kind of being an emo kid and kind of having style and having that look. And around that same period, it would have been perceived as much cooler to enjoy an album like American Idiot instead. You know, nowadays the tables have turned, bitch. The tables have turned.
I think tables have only turned on them because of the last couple albums that they put out. I think American Idiot's great. I just thought Uno Dos Tres was like utter trash.
Don't create too much beef here. Don't create too much beef. There is that Billy interview. So Billy is only technically.
I can't. And by the way, full transparency, like a large part of the reason that I make music is that I went and saw a Green Day concert when I was like 10 years old, and I fell in love with them. And they're like and I've been in Billy Joe's presence like 2 times, and I've said like exactly 0 cool words. He's incredibly nice, and he's like, how you been? And I just say like stupid platitudes because I can't speak English around that guy because he means too much to me as a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you know, kill your heroes, because Uno Dos Tres is like the worst trilogy of all time. It's so bad.
Just for age reference, what was your first Green Day album?
American Idiot.
Okay, great. Yeah,
I was a Wake Me Up When September Ends kid.
Got it. I was a Basket Case kid.
So, great. I mean, that album's awesome.
Yeah.
Dookie, it's so good.
That was me.
I liked American Idiot a lot, and then I liked, I thought 21st Century Breakdown was probably like their sort of most like produced album.
That was the rock opera.
Yeah, exactly. And it was produced by Butch Big, and he did like Nevermind. Like, he just really like made them do like brave stuff on that record. Put real ballads on it, put string arrangements on it, did like sound design.
Yeah.
And then Uno Dos Tres. Yeah, this is all stuff that I haven't really talked about. When I was 15 years old, I auditioned for a boy band that Rob Cavallo was creating, and Rob produced all of the, like, he produced like Black Parade and Danger Days, and he produced American Idiot and the trilogy, and he produced like all the Gooseworth. Like, that's never been a band that means anything to me, but he did all of them. Anyway, so for a couple weeks, I was in the audition process of Rob Cavallo's failed boy band. So we would go to his house and record songs. It never went anywhere, but it was a bizarre experience.
So wait a second, hold up. I think we're breaking some news here. This is very important to know. And I don't mean just that you tried out for a boy band. You know. That's
yeah.
So what you're telling me, okay? What you're telling me is that you were trying to get into a boy band, and it didn't work out.
I was not put in the boy band. They did not choose me.
Okay, they didn't choose you. Didn't work out.
No, they didn't think I was good enough.
However it functioned. What you're telling me right now is that your rich, connected movie actor, actress parents didn't just bust down the door for you and be like, "Get our son in this boy band."
That's right. Yeah.
Did they not do that because that is a fever dream that the internet suffers from for some reason, or is it because they love Billy more than you and they wanted her to have the successful career and they just left you in the dust?
The last time I tried to address this, I literally had to leave Twitter, but because the most they did was that I lived in LA and I was in the city where the auditions took place, and so I went to the Warner building and like waited in line and auditioned, and then they were like, "Oh, he can sing," and then they didn't choose me for the boy band. Basically what happened on Twitter was I said I didn't grow up rich, and my parents aren't movie stars, they don't know everybody. And everybody said
they drove you to the audition, though, right?
Yeah, I said I grew up privileged in that I had parents who were willing to support us, for sure. And I said, but we didn't grow up rich. And then the internet was like, "But you're white," and I was like, "That's correct." And then I just quit. I was like, "I'm done." Yeah.
Which, look, granted, there's no denying that there are privileges that come along with the means and the ability to just like produce or create your own music and, you know, whatever.
No, I grew up privileged, and I deleted that stupid advice tweet, and I should have deleted that stupid advice tweet. It was clearly short-sighted of me, and I see that, and I have,
but still, having said that, and shedding light on what you've just shedded light on, that is still not the picture that people tend to paint of the situation.
No, not really.
People paint the situation as if, your parents are both execs at Warner Brothers or something. Yeah. And we're just like, give our children the biggest budget of any album you've ever released and just make them famous right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's like, look, kids out there with parents that I just reviewed a producer the other day, and I didn't talk about it in the review. But his name is Guppy. You might have heard his stuff before.
I've heard Guppy.
Stuff. His dad is fucking Tony Hawk. Millionaire pro skater Tony Hawk. That's his dad. And it's like you don't. I don't know when you're talking about the dad lottery. It's
that's
like
you won.
You won. Your dad is fucking Tony Hawk.
Well, and I don't know how you feel about this, but like other than the fact that you might start with a leg up, it like. I don't know. Growing up and having the kind of like mentality that I think most kids do, where they really want to prove themselves. It must be like a friend of mine growing up, who I didn't really know that well, but we sang in the same church choir. His dad started Razor Scooter, and I remember talking to him about moving out, and he lived in a palace, and I remember just being like, when I move out, and he was like. When am I ever going to want to move out ever? He was like, I have 2 pools. I remember just being like, that probably stunts your like it's a form of like affluenza, I guess what I'm saying. Because as a kid, you go out and you prove yourself and you make your own way and you live with your friends or whatever. And I couldn't help but like feel a little bad if you're like always going to compare yourself to your dad and feel like a failure. Like it made me sad for him. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, at some point when it comes to my future children, I will make sure that what I'm doing right now, like burns down. Like,
you can't be the Anthony Fantano by the time you have kids.
Yeah, by the time my kids are teenagers and like thinking about the way they're going to make their way in the world, I need to find a way to just like hit the eject button on this.
I'm totally comfortable being a burnout by the time I have like a tween.
Yeah.
That's my dream. Yeah.
So, moving on from there, a lot of what you're saying is pretty interesting in terms of the connections you guys have been making since the record is gone as it has. And I thought it was pretty funny what you were saying about the responses that you've been getting on social media. But generally, like, can you give me a greater sense, especially in terms of like your working relationship with Billie? Because obviously when people look to things like the footage of her at the Grammys looking like, isn't it weird that I'm here? Like, clearly there's this concept like, this is all a bit freaky and surreal that it's like happened this way.
Yeah.
But, what I'm also curious about, like, is what is, generally the feeling from you personally about seeing this person who you've known your entire life on the other end of so much adoration, but also so much distrust and confusion and even hatred too. Because I mean, when I tweet about like, hey, I like this song from the Billie record, or hey, this is good, or hey, we need a music video or something, it's like I will get deluged and I'll get DMs where it's like, if I didn't know any better, Billie was actually Bernie Sanders, and everybody responding to me was just like a DNC or like a Republican operative, just like he's a communist. It's like they're all the equal amount of mad, and they're all saying the same thing as if they had been given a script.
Crazy.
Like, where did you all learn these sentences that you're all repeating them back at me? Like, where did you all learn this one singular argument that you're just repeating over and over and over? And to someone who, is just looking at this person like, this is my sister. This person I've known my entire life. This is someone who I love, and I'm going to, know them after our parents are gone. And it's going to, this person will know me more than anyone else does. What is that like, sort of seeing that? Because obviously the music industry is one thing, but that's another.
Well, I mean, it is. It's worse than if it were criticism directed at me.
Sure.
Because it's just this person that I love more than anything, right? And I think, like, I don't know how you internalize like hate comments about you, but like when I get them about me, like it's very easy for me to like just be like, that's not my identity, and just like brush them off. But I think when you see them directed at a person you love, it's like this, it's the same format as like being on the playground and a kid making a joke about your mom. Like it's the same deal. You just have this like,
it's
you're like, hey, you don't know them.
Yeah, it's hard to compartmentalize that when it's about somebody else.
Yeah, it's harder just because you're like, it makes you more defensive than I think you would be if you're like, man, I see a mean comment about myself. It's so funny to me. Like sometimes they're just like, they make, because I have like a strabismus where one of my eyes looks in the wrong direction. Like if it's a well-written comment about like me looking like in two different directions, it's so funny to me. But sometimes like Billy will be like, oh, that was mean. And I'm like, oh, because it's not you, because it's me. And so you're like empathizing. I mean, you know, I think like she wears the like public eye better than I would. Like, and I think part of it is that she didn't, like, I got like a good couple years as like a legal adult of complete anonymity to like, just, you know, now I get stopped maybe like 2 or 3 times if I'm at a mall, right? It's still pretty minor compared to her. And it's always really nice, and I have nothing to complain about. But it's like, it is nice when you're like truly anonymous to go somewhere and not feel like you're going to be secretly photographed in like a shoe store at all. And I feel like part of the weird scenario that Billy's in is she never had any time of that, so she doesn't really know what she's missing. Like, this is her only reality of growing up, is like, I'm watched everywhere and kids chase me through airports. And so she just deals with it. And I think if it like I wonder if you're like maybe an Ed Sheeran, where you're like a little older and then you're this super famous person, if you just miss being like a regular motherfucker, you know? Because it's nice. Because I love going to a coffee shop and just sitting there for an hour, and then like going to a Trader Joe's. I love it. And like, I'm back.
Okay, there you are.
But
you were talking about how much you fucking love Trader Joe's.
I love Trader Joe's. I love just being like, I love like observing other people. Like, I feel like that's one of the things that is my favorite thing to then write a song about, is like watching 2 people at a restaurant have a relationship. And I feel like if you're visually a famous person, everybody's just looking at you the whole time, and so you don't get to spy at all.
Makes it really hard to be a creep. It's true.
Exactly. Yeah. I love being creepy.
Yeah.
How much are you stopped in your daily life for being?
Depends on where I am. It really.
Sure. I'm not talking about Complex Con. I'm talking about like.
No. Look, I have not been to Complex Con. Even if I did go to Complex Con, hype beasts don't really give a fuck about me. I can't really say that there would be too many people even stopping me at Complex Con. But I have been at concerts where it's artists that I've reviewed, and I literally can't leave the building. You know, I went to a Brockhampton concert, and immediately when the concert was over, the security at the front were screaming because they were like, "Why is no one leaving the building? Leave the building now! Everyone leave the building!" But like everybody, like I was in front of them, and everybody was trying to like get in my direction. But yeah,
doesn't Brockhampton technically have to disband until coronavirus is done? Aren't they a gathering of more than 10?
Technically, or they're quarantining within the quarantine. Maybe they quarantine into different sections.
Yeah, maybe they. Yeah, exactly. There's like the producer quarantine and the lyricist quarantine, and then there's like the visual media quarantine that's like HK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the struggle.
All the videos of their new album cycle, all the videos are just going to be the visual guys in quarantine just filming mirrors. That's going to be the whole visual campaign of the new one.
Everyone's just going to have to be shot in different locations.
Yeah, exactly.
Or green screen stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but before we start to wrap this up, something that I thought of earlier when you were talking about kind of the creative process and Billy's co-producing on stuff that you guys worked on. I feel like nothing really highlights that more than listening to your solo stuff, because sonically and stylistically and musically that has come out so different, you know,
so different
from what you were doing on When We All Fall Asleep, which I think is also a tribute to the input she has on that record too. Because when people say, "Oh, well, her brother just does everything," well, well, number one, how many pop records can you name that sounds like that? And number two, if you listen to FINNEAS' solo stuff, it sounds entirely different. So if he has total control of the creative process, he's out in his own world over there doing a totally different sound.
Well, I think to two fronts on that, like the main deal is that I just didn't have any interest in making my own stuff sound like the stuff I've made with Billy, and so it's like
when making it, you were consciously like, this has to have no resemblance.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have as a solo artist, like, essentially no value if I'm just doing what Billy's doing minus her beautiful voice. Like, to me, that's like, then it's bullshit. So to me, it's like, then I have to pull from my different influences that we, like, a lot of what Billy and my records together on her sort of profile, it's like our shared influence. And I feel like my stuff is like none of our shared influence, where it's like all the stuff that I grew up listening to that, like, she liked but didn't influence her. Like, I grew up listening to like a ton of Ben Folds 5 and shit. And so, like, to me, it's like let me go there. I'll go like John Mayer and Ben Folds 5 and shit, and not so much like the shared paradigm.
That Ben Folds debut is like one of the best piano rock records ever.
Totally agree. He's a huge deal to me.
The bass and the drums and the piano in that are so fucking tight.
I know, they're really good. And he played, like, I mean, in the Ben Folds 5, like, the other two guys played, but, like, he slams at everything. He's a great drummer and a great bassist and such a clever lyricist. He's so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, what else in terms of, like, things that you more gravitate to personally, you know, would you say kind of went into that, you know, recent project that you dropped?
Well, I'm a sort of a, like, singer-songwriter obsessed person. So I grew up on a lot of, like, Feist records and Duncan Sheik records. And then as I got a little older, it was like Father John Misty and Alex G. And I did listen to my fair share of Fleet Foxes, but Father John, to me, like, lyrically,
so basically
pumped my nads more.
Basically when the Depression started setting in.
Yeah.
Gravitate more toward the Father John and the Alex G. At one point, everything's happy-go-lucky and feel good, and then you know, it's pure comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Father John, in many ways, like, you know, not that he's the first artist to do this, and I think for a lot of people it was LCD Sound System, but, like, you know, he sang songs about stuff that as a songwriter made me go, like, oh my God, I could sing about anything. Yeah. Like, I feel like if you grow up studying songwriting too much, you write all these, like, verse chorus, and, you know, songs of his, like, Holy Shit, or, like, I Went to the Store One Day, or Hollywood Forever Cemetery Sings. Like, there's just these things that happen in those songs that you're like, for me, I was like, oh my God, I could write whatever I want to write, you know?
Yeah, definitely him, and I'm sure you're familiar with his work too, Mark Kozlek, Sun Kill Moon.
Yeah, I love Mark Kozlek. My dad and I both love him.
Yeah, really, really pushing the boundary of, hey, we can literally do anything about anything. And I feel like that's ultimately, like, where all content is kind of going anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the music, the internet, writing, TikToks, you can literally do anything about anything. And it doesn't matter if it appeals to everyone, as long as there's some kind of niche out there that it's quenching the thirst of, I guess.
I have a question for you, just because I've been curious as a watcher of yours for years. Do
Sure.
you feel, I'm always aware that your reviews are a full essay and pre-production time and thought through, and then, you know, edited to a precise degree to make sure that you're articulate. Do you feel that, like, I always feel that if I were you, I'd feel like the haters, like, don't understand how much you're putting into, like, one review.
Yeah.
Like it's as if they think you go on camera and you're like, this album sucks, and then you're done. And instead you're like, this incredibly, even an album that you give like a 0 to, you're like track by track and analyzing the bars, and you're like, this is why I don't like this, and this is why I think it's. And to me, it's like, do you feel like, do you feel recognized for your work in that? Because, like, I feel like it's hard work.
No, I feel like there is at least a decent portion of my audience that does recognize that. The people who you're talking about, personally, I am curious as to why they even watch, if that's like the degree of sort of like thought that they're putting into what I'm doing. Because if all that you think I'm doing is like, fuck this shit, which, you know, there are very much reviews that I've done that have that attitude. And I know that there are fans of mine and viewers of mine who specifically are drawn to the negative reviews for that, you know, reason. They like to see, you know, sort of the whole thing kind of burned down. Some people are just drawn to the negativity, but like, if you think that's like all that I'm putting into a review, I wonder why you watch. Because if that's all I thought someone was putting into a review, and I have seen reviewers do that, I would not watch them. I wouldn't follow what they do. You know? But
no, I feel the same way.
It is what it is. There are people who recognize, and, you know, I will admit that in a perfect world, you know, I would be able to spend an entire week with your record, with the Childish Gambino record, with
I know you review such a high volume of records.
But it's really just kind of as a result of just having a process, having the right people, the right couple of people around me who just help that along in the most efficient way. And just having done it for so long, you know.
Do you have a listen rule? Do you like to only listen to it once? Do you like to listen to it 5 times? Is there a rule before you review it?
It depends on only as many times as I need to get out of it what I need to get out of it to explain. But you know, typically it ranges from 5 to 6 to 7 times. You know, it can be even more if it is a genre or an artist that I'm unfamiliar with. But the more I do this, the less likely that ends up kind of being the case. You know what I mean? The more I do this, the more familiar I am. And look, I mean, while a lot of people like to display that, or, you know, like to argue that I have a wide palette and I listen to and I review a lot of stuff, I mean, I stay pretty clearly within the boundaries of most popular music and, you know, experimental stuff that has a bit of accessibility to it. I mean, there's a lot of music concrete and classical stuff that I just don't have any kind of like basis for, or really like an appreciation for, outside of just saying, okay, this sounds different, or this has a certain mood to it or something, or this is aesthetically very far off from something I would normally just enjoy personally.
Right.
When it comes to classical music, I'm very much a noob in a lot of respects.
That's how I feel. I'm a, like, when you get nominated or anything, you're a Academy voter for the Grammys, and I only voted for things that I could compare all of the things to. Like, if it was a category of like 5 artists and I was like, I listened to all those, I know which one I liked the best out of that. But I felt like a dick if I was like, I listened to one album in the spoken word section. I'm not going to like give that my rating if I didn't listen to any of the other albums. So I feel like that's, you know,
I would be in there. I'd see that. And then I would I would know what I want. And then I'd go listen to the other ones and try to justify my choice already. And just go, fuck these other records. I listen to them. I actually listen to them. My vote counts now. So.
Well, that's fair. I feel like that's fair. Yeah.
But yeah, you know, the reviews at this point are kind of like, in a way, they're in assembly line, yes, but I also get to be creative with how I want to put what I have to put. You know, they all share kind of the basic structure. They're all shot in the same spot. They're all used with they're all made with the same camera and the same editing software. And I know at what points in the day I have to write, to listen, to do this, to do that. You know, it's a job, and I treat it like a job, and there's a routine to it, and it's what allows me to kind of keep up, you know, with everything, and just kind of do what I'm doing at the pace that I do it. And I'm glad that, you know, you see value in that, and you see that it's working and it's functioning. And, you know, I was flattered when I heard that not only did you watch, but then I thought it was also funny that you were afraid to watch the review. After you had heard the review was out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I saw that you'd reviewed our record, and I was just like, and I just like went to some other part of it. I was like, no way. And then my friend who is a sweet dude, but would be very happy to watch an Anthony Fantano review where you shit all over our record, like that kind of friendship, right? Where he would be stoked if you were like, worst record ever. And he was like, bro, Anthony Fantano. And I was like, I don't want to hear it. And he was like 8 out of 10. And I was like, what? Like, I couldn't believe it. And like, I think to me, the only reason I didn't watch it in the first place was, this is a thing that I'm too close to the surface of, which is this record we made, right? Where like, I only have the opinion of like the father, where I'm just like, it's my baby. And
Sure.
and Anthony's entitled to whatever his own opinion is, but I'm too passionate about my opinion to separate that. Like, I watch reviews of yours of bands I love.
And that's understandable.
Yeah.
And that's understandable.
I watch reviews of yours of bands I love where, like, I maybe think the record was either less good or way better than your review is. And it's painless because it's like well articulated and, like, you know, it's to me it's how, like, the political landscape should be, that everybody has different opinions and they go, okay, cool. But, like, yeah, with the thing that I made, I was like, and I remember even after he told me it was a high rating, I, like, watched it and I was like, oh no. But no, it was very flattering. I mean, I think everything happened so fast to us that, you know, when we were recording the record, even, we thought X number of people were going to hear it and enjoy it. And then by the time it came out, it was just this much bigger thing. We got it was like this tidal wave, and we just got really lucky. And, you know, so seeing a review of yours, I was like, oh my God, if he made a review of our record, it means people care about our record, which was sort of like, you know, a bizarre thing in and of itself. When are you touring again?
Hopefully after the COVID thing is over.
Dude, isn't that crazy? We had a conversation about doing dates today, and, like, everybody's just guessing.
Everyone's guessing, but I feel like if you're paying close attention and seeing that we're not doing everything that we need to be doing, whenever you think it's going to end, push it like 3 months forward, because
I totally agree. Because
look, China's been dealing with this since January or so, or a little bit earlier, and they're still dealing with it.
And they dealt with it way better.
And we're doing way less than they were at this point, and we're not going to be finished with this anytime soon. I mean, you know, to go back to what you were just saying, you know, with the reviews, even though, yeah, there are a lot of people who I don't sense are thinking about it in the way that you were saying, in terms of, like, you know, appreciating whatever's being put into them. I will say one thing that is flattering, though, is that even with people who watch me the least or hate me the most, there's still always a curiosity and, you know, at least a certain level of wondering as to what I'm going to say about an album. You know, like, people are very much, like, you know, hesitant, unless they're, like, fans who just, like, want the review to be a certain way. A lot of people are hesitant, as, like, I don't know what he's going to say. Like, I don't know what he's going to like. And I feel like if you watched all my videos closely enough, you should have a sense of what I'm going to gravitate to and what I'm not. But
I feel that I've watched the reviews for years. I'm now rarely, I go to because I'm a dick, I start your review and go to the bottom of the description where it says the rating.
Total dick. Totally.
I know. And then I watch the rest of it, but I'm always but that is for the bet. That it's because I'm like, I know what he rated this, and I go down and I'm usually like, okay, I know Anthony's taste well enough to know that he liked this record, he didn't like that record. Yeah. But also I think it's because in general, I feel the same way about the record. Like I knew how you're going to feel about that Gambino record. I just knew. I was like, I know how I feel about this. I know how Anthony's going to feel about this.
That's interesting. That's interesting to hear that.
Yeah, that's my feeling. But I'm always gleeful when you rate things 0. It always makes me happy.
Well, hopefully it doesn't happen too often.
Well, because it's so disrespectful. It's so funny. Like a 0.
But you know, part of what makes it that is that it's rare. You know, if you get everything's a 0, then it doesn't matter anymore. Just like if everything's a 10.
No, it's. I feel like a 0, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. 0 is like a little less rare than a 10 from you.
Yeah, a little bit less.
Mostly shit's like a 4.
Yeah, most. You know, I forget who in the Rolling Stones, you know, said it, but you know, it's kind of true that 90 or 80% of stuff is just okay. You know,
I totally feel that way.
And you know, there's another 10% that's total shit, and then there's another 10% that's like amazing and fantastic.
Yeah, I think most stuff is like pretty good.
Yeah.
Or not even, or like average, just pretty average. Yeah. Because I think people forget. I think about it every time we've just been starting some songs these last couple days for whatever the fuck we do next, and I forget that it's really hard every time I make a song to make a song, and like the song might be like totally milquetoast and it was still really hard. And that's like the funny thing about like actually creating anything. It's like being a sculptor. It's like you might make like a really ugly sculpture, but you still worked your ass off for like days on this thing that was okay. Like Chance the Rapper didn't not work hard on his shitty album, you know.
It's true. It's true.
Which is just sad.
Yeah. No, and sometimes it pans out that way, you know, but the thing is, like, you need to know how to kill your babies, essentially. You know,
totally.
Everybody comes out with shitty stuff. Even great artists write and create shit. It's really just a matter of, if this is going to be your career, of knowing what's worth putting out, what's worth redoing, and what's worth, you know, just throwing it to the side. And
even like a Frank Ocean to me, who like makes total quality over quantity, and there's like some of the songs that have like opened my mind the most to like lyric melody shit. Like he still has songs where I'm like, well, I didn't need this one to come out ever, but it's just like, that's just because everybody has different opinions and everybody has different taste, and that song gave something to somebody that it didn't give to me. It's like, you know, that's all okay. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming by. This has been a great talk.
Well, it's nice to meet you. I've never talked to you.
Yeah, we haven't talked to each other, you know, only sort of online exchanges and stuff.
Only the DMs, because on the night of the Grammys, I was like, do you want to come to our after party? And you were like, I don't live in Los Angeles.
And you know what? You guys had tour dates coming up, and I was planning on maybe coming out to the New York date. And,
shit.
But then it, you know, everything got put on hold, and, you know, and unfortunately, but yeah.
Well, whenever we make our way to the East Coast again, whatever date is closest to you, please come out and say hi, and we'd love that.
I will.
Good to talk to you, Anthony.
Good to talk to you too. You have a good day.
Semper Fi.